Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for the board version of Simplify. Simplify is a workshop, it's a book, and I created it to help organizations who keep saying, boy, someday we're really going to get intentional about our plan giving program, and someday never arrives. Simplify is a simple way to approach it. Plan giving is an area of fundraising that many people put on the back burner for what seems to be other more pressing things. Plan giving, I believe, is like our personal savings account, where we have, hopefully we're putting away a certain percentage of our funds for the future. One of my favorite expressions, sayings, is in the future, there will be two types of charities, those with an endowment and those that are extinct. Plan gives build endowment. What are we doing to ensure our future? People tell me, well, plan giving sounds great, but you know what? We don't have a lot of time. We don't have a lot of resources. We have one or two people in our shop. Others say, you know what? Plan giving just seems so complicated. Let's focus. It's human nature, right? We focus on the path of least resistance. Others tell us, you know what? We need cash now. We're building buildings. We have these projects. Plan gifts take too long. Well, in this presentation, I'm going to show you how you can build or take your plan giving program to the next level despite all these concerns. Wonderful research done by a group out of Canada called Decima Research. Of those surveyed, 34% of the donors said that yes, they would consider or be open to a conversation with their favorite charity about including them in their estate plans. 34%, that's exciting. So I think about for every 10 loyal donors I have, 3 to 4 should be open to a conversation. So it takes this task, this initiative that seems so daunting maybe sometime with everything else going on, and breaks it down into pieces, just essentially to say, look, it's a matter of getting through the 6 or 7 people that aren't going to be interested to get to the 3 or 4 that are. As humans, we have a tendency to focus on the negative. So let's focus on the positive. There are 3 to 4 out of 10 that probably are open to this conversation. Now, the other part of this question from the Decima Research folks, of those surveyed, only 17% said they were ever asked. So I look at that as a lot of opportunity. We aren't asking enough. And I promise you, you have donors out there that are open to a conversation, and it's a question of getting to them. Quick little bit about myself. This is obviously taken a few years ago, back in my Western motif days. I serve 3 roles. One is as a plan giving trainer and coach. I work with organizations to help them either start or take their major and plan giving programs to the next level. That's most of my work. I do some part-time work as a plan giving officer, major gift plan giving officer for a wonderful World Relief organization. Most of that work is over the phone, so it gives me an opportunity to talk to hundreds and hundreds of donors every year, and I learn a lot from speaking with prospects and donors. And then my wife and I, Lorraine, are plan giving donors. We have about 12 charities in our plans. We have a donor advised fund, which I'll talk a little bit about later. And so I share a lot of the experience from the donor perspective as well. This webinar is broken down into 3 areas. Why? It's my favorite question. The approach. Why plan giving? Why should anybody care? Why should we be focusing on it? Why is it so important? The approach. What's the best way to approach building a program? What's the best way to approach donors? Communicating, messaging it, keeping realistic expectations with our fellow board members and leadership, and then how you, the board member, volunteer, can help. Simplify the why. There's a wonderful YouTube video by a gentleman, Simon Sinek. That's S as in Sam, I, N as in Nancy, E-K. He wrote a book, and there's a TED Talk called Start with Why. There's a 5-minute edited version on YouTube. I highly recommend at the minimum that you watch that. Everyone that I show that to always comes back and says, wow, that's really powerful. And so essentially what Simon says is, pardon the pun, is that most of us, when we talk about anything we're doing, whether we're selling something, whether we're promoting a political candidate, whether we're fundraising, we tend to talk on the what. We talk about the what we do. And that's not real motivating or exciting. What's exciting and motivates people is why we do what we do. And so I believe as we're interacting with people, as we're building programs, as we're talking, communicating, it's always about finding out the why. And we're going to talk more specifically about that. So why Plan Giving? Why is this important? If you look at the stats over and over again, year after year, Plan Giving keeps growing. This is a Giving USA report. And you'll see here they took the 5 different sectors of giving, and in the upper right-hand corner, giving by bequest had the largest increase over the last several years, 15.5%. And so it's here to stay. And I promise you, if your organization is not pursuing planned gifts, you are leaving money on the table. You are losing out on opportunities for additional funding. There's a really smart, very generous researcher in our business, Russell James, and there's his website there, encouragegenerosity.com. He's done a lot of recent research. It's really turning our industry around in the way that we've been thinking about Plan Giving and Plan Giving donors over the years. One of the favorite findings was that Russell talks about the wealth transfer. We've all been talking for the last 10 years about this big wealth transfer that's taking place. And I'm not sure that we at the nonprofit level have seen the impact of that yet, but it's coming. So if you look at this chart, and this is the only chart I have in this presentation, so don't get nervous. And it's very simple. If we look at birth rates over the years, a lot of the donors that we've been working with in their 80s, when they were born, population was, and the birth rate was smaller. And then obviously the baby boomer generation, there's a lot of people in that. So the exciting news is, as we'll see in the next several slides, is that our primary age range, target range for Plan Giving conversations is going to be between 45, let's say, and 75. And so the great news out of this is there's a lot of people in that generation. Here are a couple of quick stats, bullet points that I think are really hit the point. Only 5% of our donors' wealth is in cash. Think about it. For most of us, I'm a baby boomer, most of our assets are in our retirement plans. And that's a great way to make a planned gift, as we'll see later. Most of these planned gifts, we'll see over and over again, are simple beneficiary gifts. So when people say, hey, this is too complicated, rarely does it get complicated. In my work with hundreds and hundreds of donors a year, the percentage of donors that I have a complex, well, I don't have complex conversations, but the percentage of donors where it sounds like there's a tax implication and I need to get my lawyer partner involved is very, very small, less than 5%. The average planned giving or planned gift, excuse the typo, the average planned gift is 200 times a donor's annual gift. Huge, 200 times. So think about what's a big gift for your organization. Let's say a big gift is $10,000. So a planned gift could be $2 million. What would we do with that? Very important question. If you're building a program, planned giving program, or a major gifts program for that matter, do we know what we would do with these big gifts? It's really important to have that articulated, agreed upon, and to be able to message that to donors because donors want to know. Why should I make a bigger gift? I'm giving you $1,000 a year now. Why should I give you $10,000? What are you going to do with it? Or what are you going to do with a $2 million gift? As a planned giving donor, I don't want it to be thrown in to pay the utility bill. I want to leave a legacy. I want to see programs that I can invest in through my planned gift commitment. And as I mentioned earlier, this baby boomer generation, that's our prime target between, let's say, 45 or 52 and 70. So there's a lot of money in that generation right now. And the question is, from a plain giving standpoint, are we taking every ethical, moral, and legal advantage to build relationships with donors that would ultimately lead to these larger gifts? Wonderful quote that I heard from one of my friendly competitors at the Suddes Group, S-U-D-D-E-S. Don't make decisions for your donors. How many times do we do that? Either out loud or subconsciously. Our donors wouldn't be interested in plain gifts. Our donors wouldn't be interested in funding these bigger projects. Let the donor decide for themselves. And along that line is, let's give donors options. If we are not offering plain gift options to our donors, I believe we are doing them a disservice. As a plain giving donor, I want options. I am not in a position in my mid-50s, in my peak, hopefully peak earning years, I am not comfortable writing a big check to our favorite charities. But I am, and we are, interested in making larger commitments through our estate plans, through gifts that cost us nothing now. So let's give donors options. They want it. It's not about us. It shouldn't be about us all the time. From a fundraising standpoint, it should be about certainly the people we serve and the donors. So let's give the donors options with these plain gifts. This is a really big point. The first plain gift does not have to be the last. I see it over and over again with a lot of organizations. We have 30 members, 30 people that have told us that we know of that have made a plain gift commitment. And we send them cards and we invite them to events. But that doesn't have to be the end of it. Just like an annual gift and a major gift is repeatable. We wouldn't, I hope we wouldn't just ask somebody for an annual or a major gift one time, right? We cultivate them for the gift, and then we hopefully thank and steward them well enough that we can cultivate them for the next gift. Same thing with plain giving. So I have done that. We've done that with our retirement plan. We started with one of my alma maters, St. Joseph's University, made them a 10% beneficiary in a old IRA account that I have that I really don't pay attention to or contribute to anymore, and I've never rolled it over into anything else. But we started as a 10% beneficiary to St. Joe's, and that was 4 or 5 years ago. Well, we're now evolving that into a larger commitment to an endowed scholarship. So when Lorraine and I pass, it'll create an endowed scholarship to go on in perpetuity. Much bigger commitment. Why? Because number one is they're doing such a great job of stewarding us and keeping us engaged. And secondly, our priorities are starting to change. We don't have children, so we're great plain giving prospects. So we are the, I would say, a typical profile of a great plain giving prospect. We're loyal to the organization and we don't have children. So if you have people, donors who are very loyal, very involved, very committed, don't have children, they should rise to the top of your plain giving prospect list. And so our priorities are changing. And we have nieces and nephews, and we're certainly going to provide for them. But as I get older and as they get older, I realize, you know what, they don't need all of our assets. Philanthropy is really important to us. And so we want to provide for these charities in a bigger way and provide for our nieces and nephews. So the other thing that's not on here is very other big point, is that once someone becomes a plain giving donor, they are invested. And so it's very likely that our outright giving will increase. So when your fellow board members say, why are you focusing on this? Why are we focusing on it? We need cash in the door now. Well, yes, number one, let's give our donors options. Number two is we know that their plain gift commitment, initial one, does not have to be the last. And then thirdly, their outright giving should increase. So it feeds. Plain gifts feed major gifts feed plain gifts and annual gifts, and it all works together. It should work together. This is a really simple but pretty powerful way to look at our financial state or estate. And there's really only 3 places where money can go: our family, taxes, or charity. And the question that I encourage you to ask yourself, if you really haven't sat down and thought about it and hopefully written it out, where do I want my money to go? By the way, do you as a board member volunteer or fundraiser, have a giving plan, a plan for your giving philanthropy. It's a simple thing to do, but it really, I think, helps give you clarity and focus on what's most important. So how much do you want to go to your family? Keep in mind, I think we assume that all our donors want all their money to go to the kids, grandkids, or nieces and nephews, and that's not the case. I speak from personal experience and working with donors and fundraisers. Not everybody wants all the inheritance. So maybe a question you can ask your children is, what's your expectation for your inheritance? And let's talk about it as a family. I want to provide for these charities. How do you feel about that? Money can go to taxes, and we'll see a couple of quick, easy ways. This presentation is very high level. We're not getting into the weeds, and I'll give you some other resources for that at the end of the presentation. This is very high level. It's a way for you as a board member, volunteer, in your busy life to help your organization be more intentional around plan giving. The approach. How do we approach this? How do we think about it? How do we think about it as a board, as an organization, and how do we articulate and communicate that with our donor constituency? It's all about the donor. I keep saying that. Yes, certainly, number one, it's about the people we serve. From a fundraising standpoint, I believe it should be about the donor. So many fundraising programs in place today were built on an older model. They were built for the World War II generation. Think about it. Think about that generation. More trusting, more collaborative of, hey, my neighbor, my classmate, they're doing it, I should be doing it. Look at the data that's out there for generational cohorts. My colleague, Brian Sagristano, along with his friend, Robert Wallers, and you can Google their names. Sagristano and Wallers, W-A-H-L-E-R-S, have done a lot of work in what's called generational cohorts, looking at the different generation, what motivates them to give. And so the World War II generation, much more trusting. I hear it over and over again from those donors. Just do whatever you want with the money. Baby boomers and youngers are saying, no, I want to see the impact. I want to restrict my gifts. I want to tell you what to do with the money. So out of that comes this concept that my buddy Brian Sagristano calls donor-centered philanthropy. And that's really helping the donor first. What do you want to accomplish through your giving? For yourself, for your family, your legacy, the impact that you want to have on the people we serve. And then let's collectively figure out how we can help you get what you want first, and then in turn, we get what we need and want. The old Stephen Covey win-win, right? How do we do this together? As opposed to us saying, this is what we need. Can you write a check? That's the old model. And we need to change if we have that. This is a really neat way to look at plan giving. It's called the above the line and below the line concept. It was developed by brothers Scott and Todd Fithian, F-I-T-H-I-A-N, and it's a concept that I've learned, and it's really affected and changed the way I look at plan giving, the way I work with donors, the way I think about it, talk about it. And so you have this horizontal line. Below the line is how to make a plan gift. It's the gift structures, the vehicles, it's tax planning, it's all the more technical, complicated stuff. And I'm not saying that is not important. It is important, but I see way too much emphasis placed on the below the line. Above the line is all about the donor. It's their dreams, it's their aspirations, their legacy, it's their concerns, it's their worries, it's being sensitive to the donor. It's spending time figuring out what the donors want to accomplish and why they care about our work. And so I have this mantra I created, and I encourage you to incorporate, stay above the line. Let's stay above the line as long as we can in our interactions, in our messaging, in our marketing with donors, with people, with investors. And then when we understand the why, then we can talk about the how. And as a fundraiser, and maybe as a volunteer, unless you're being paid by the donor, it's not our job to give them advice. I always say that to a donor, is I'm not here to give you advice, I'm here to give you ideas. Very important point. There was a gentleman, Jim Rohn, R-O-H-N, motivational type speaker, said, when the why is clear, the how is easy. When the why is clear, the how is easy. So back to this slide. Let's figure out the why first, and then we can figure out the how. If I know you want to do more and you really care enough about this organization that you're willing to spend time figuring out what to do, I can give you ideas. We certainly want to pull in your professional advisor, right? Because they're going to help you with any of the more technical stuff. But let's figure out the why before we do anything else. So it's always about the why. I keep coming back to this. What's the donor's why, right? Let's just simply ask the donor, why do you care? Why do you support us? What's our organization's why? Really important. Why are we in business? Why do we do what we do? Why would anybody care? Let's make sure as a board we understand that. We can all articulate that in the same way. So at your board meetings, board retreats, write that out. It's a great, simple exercise. What's our why? Get out a piece of paper, get out a whiteboard, and just write it out. What's our why? And start listing. What's your why as a donor, as a board member, as a volunteer? Why do you care enough? Why are you on this webinar? Why are you thinking about Plan Giving? Why is the organization so important to you? And once you have clarity on that, if you're not already, figure out how to deliver that why to motivate and inspire others in a compelling way. We're not getting in the weeds on this webinar about the different gift vehicles. I'm just bringing up this slide. These are the most popular ways for people to support us, just to show you how easy it can be, how simple this can be. Knowing that 85%, up to 85%, 90% of these are leave us a beneficiary in your will, in your trust, qualified retirement plan, my favorite. For most of us, this is our most heavily taxed asset. And it's a really, really simple way for me to make a plan gift, knowing that a percentage is going to Uncle Sam, or I can give it to my favorite charity. It is a no-brainer, and I or my wife, Lorraine, can change our minds at the drop of a hat. Life insurance, beneficiary, payment on death, which are all types of accounts, bank accounts, investment accounts, mutual fund accounts, and donor advised funds. So keep in mind, if you have donors that have a donor advised fund, by the way, talk to your CFO, your accounting department. Say, hey, are we getting checks in from donor advised funds? Make sure that that donor knows that they need to make, they don't know already, that they need to have a beneficiary in that fund when they pass, and that they can make our nonprofit organization, our charity, a beneficiary. My wife and I do that with our donor advised fund. Every client that I sign on over a certain dollar amount, I make them an equal beneficiary in our donor advised fund. That does a couple things. It shows my client that I am committed to their success. It enables me to become a Plan Giving donor of theirs, so that it changes the whole dynamic. It also enables me as a donor to see how they treat me, and I can go back and make suggestions based on my experience as a donor. Simplify how you can help. Hopefully you're asking, this is great stuff. How can I help as a board member volunteer? Big, big point. Love this quote. Really says it well. Others will follow your footsteps easier than they will your advice, right? Nobody likes taking advice. Very few people like taking advice. So join the Legacy Society. It's such a big point. And I say that to all my clients, the fundraisers. How can you expect to go out and ask someone to make this commitment if you've not done that yourself? And most organizations have a retirement plan. So make the organization, I'm speaking to the fundraiser, make them a partial beneficiary in your retirement plan that you're getting here at work anyway. And if you leave on less than favorable terms, you can always take them out. You don't even need an attorney to do that. But it changes the whole dynamic. It takes it from an exchange of I'm constantly asking donors to do something to we're in this together. And if you, the donor, really care about this enough and you want to, just like I do, because I've made this commitment, will you join me as a member of this Legacy Society and let me show you how easy it can be? In the fundraising space, we use terminology. Some people use moves management. I like to call it donor relationship management. So as we build our individual gifts program, and this is all about relationships, and we build more and more relationships, it becomes more challenging to track where we are with all our relationships. What phase are we in with each donor? So this is a very typical chart that you see, a flow chart. And so in the identify, we identify someone, maybe they're interested in making a donation or increasing their gift. And once we sense or determine some interest, then we cultivate them for the gift, build a stronger relationship, learn more about what they want to accomplish. Then we ask for the gift. If we get the gift, we acknowledge it promptly and in a personal way. We thank them. We keep them engaged in the organization, volunteer opportunities, meet with the benefactors of their gift, and then we steward them, we thank them. And you can see this is a continuous flow here, that we're always working towards the next gift. We're thanking them and then cultivating them towards the next gift. So we as fundraisers do this, and I encourage you as a board member to figure out which one of these are you willing and able to participate. So the big thing with the board that I see is most, I would say at least half board members say, I'm not comfortable asking for money, and that's fine. But I think what happens is it stops there, and people say, I'm not comfortable asking for money, and then nobody thinks about other ways to help in this initiative. So it's perfectly understandable that if you're not comfortable asking for money, we get it. But there are other ways to help. You can help in the cultivation phase. You can help in the acknowledgement phase. You can make phone calls. You can bring people to the organization, give them tours. You can, there's all kinds of ways that you can help in this initiative other than making an actual ask. So think about, what's my role? And if you're, depending on your role on the board, your position on the board, get other people on the board thinking about how can we help? And who is open to maybe helping with asks? Or who's trainable? Some people will be comfortable doing that right out of the gate. Others say, you know what, I'm not comfortable, but if you train me, I would be comfortable. And then others are going to say, you know what, no way, I'll never do that. And that's fine. So here are some ways, other ways that you can help more specifically. Make sure the back office is in order. What do I mean by that? Gift acceptance policies, gift agreements. What are we going to, what types of gifts are we going to accept? What do we need to be careful of? Do we have written gift acceptance policies? Hopefully you do, and do they include planned giving? And so I have found, and I speak from personal experience, a lot of fundraisers, myself included, I don't like that stuff. I don't like contracts and reviewing agreements, and it's just, it's not interesting to me, and I have to work really, really hard at the details. So if somebody else can do that, if somebody on my board is a lawyer or a professional advisor, an accountant, finance person, someone that's more used to doing that work and enjoys it or tolerates it, I would love for them to do that. So see if when was the last time your gift acceptance policies were reviewed? They should be reviewed at least every 2 to 3 years at least. So maybe you can help with that, the back office stuff. Keep your development team focused. Do they have written goals around planned giving? Really big point, they should. And one of my favorite and most simple goals is, how many members are we adding to the Legacy Society this year? So just even in passing or in a board meeting, if your development team or executive director or someone is giving a development report, great item to include. Every board meeting, this is how many people have signed on to the Legacy Society since the last meeting this year. You can make thank you calls. You can send thank you cards. You can adopt a donor. What do I mean by that? Lorraine and I go to a fair amount of donor events, organizations that are in our plans that we're donating, giving outright gifts to. And there are exceptions, but my observation is that there are the leadership and the big donors, and they all tend to sit at one table, and then the rest of us modest means donors are at other tables. It's kind of a flashback to being a kid at Thanksgiving, and the adults are in the dining room, and we kids are sitting at some crappy fold-up card table in the other room. And that's what it feels like sometimes at some of these events. And I'm thinking, sitting there thinking, well, why don't you as the leadership split up? Why don't everybody sit at a table with the quote, modest means plan giving donors and engage them and thank them for being a part of this and ask them why. It's that simple. Thank you and why. Thanks for being so loyal, and why are you loyal? So maybe it's my personal baggage, head trash coming out, but I see it a lot, and it's a very simple fix. You can host a donor seminar if you are an attorney, professional advisor. I'm sure you have some of those on your board. You can do a donor event, donor seminar. One of my alma maters, Montgomery County Community College, we have had great success. We have a plan giving advisory board, and we have a couple of state attorneys. They just did a great donor, it wasn't even just donors. It was just a seminar open to the community. And we had about 50 people show up. That's a lot for us. A lot for most of these events, I would say, for most of these type seminars. And they did it in such a way that was entertaining. They had prizes, they had quizzes, they did some games. So, this can be really dry material. They talked about things that all of us should know about our estate planning and about medical care and just really practical things. But they did it in such a fun, entertaining way. It was quite a hit. And we almost always get someone come up and ask for more information about including the college in their plans. So think about opportunities to help in that way. You can listen for clues as you're talking to donors in whatever venue or capacity. If you ever hear donors that say, yeah, I love this place, I would love to do more, but I need to provide for my kids, I'm afraid of running out of my money, I'm giving all I can afford to give right now, I'm on fixed income. These are clues for potential plan giving conversations, again, provided that they are interested in doing more. So how can you, as a board member volunteer, bring up this conversation with other donors, people you interact with? Back to I've said this, but it's worth repeating over and over again. Thank them. Ask them why they're so loyal. Tell them about the impact that their giving is making. And then ask them, maybe you're pre-qualifying on behalf of the fundraisers that are working there, if they're open to a conversation about gifts that don't cost them anything now, that maybe provide them income, that might be more tax efficient than the way that they're supporting the organization now. So we're nearing the end here, and we have some questions. I want to leave some time for some questions. I do want to say thank you so much, and I love this little slide. We can't do it right without you. Yes, we can build the plan giving program without you, but it's not the right way to do it. We need your help. Join the Plan Giving Society. Be an ambassador. Set the example. Show your other board members how easy it can be, how simple it can be, and the impact that we need to provide for future generations. And I see over and over again as I work with clients, they say, boy, so-and-so worked here, Mary worked here 20 years ago, and she was all over plan giving, and we are reaping the benefits now. And we haven't done so since Mary left, and it's time to get back into it. So it's one of those things that you don't see. It's not instant gratification many times, but long-term, it is very powerful and can make a big difference. So thank you for taking the time and the interest in this. I'm going to open up to some questions. Take a quick sip of water here. Steve from Raleigh, North Carolina. Steve, thanks for your question. Steve asks, is it realistic to expect 100% board participation in plan giving? Awesome question. Expect, yes. Insist upon, probably not, to be realistic, right? But expect it and be intentional and put it out there. And I would put that, hopefully you have board member gift descriptions written and that the new board member has signed off on. And hopefully in there is the giving expectation. And I would include plan giving. My recommendation, and many of my colleagues when it comes to board giving, is that not necessarily a specific dollar amount, but that you consider the organization that you're serving as one of your top 3 charities. And so as part of that, please consider a planned gift. And it can be very simple. And again, I love that whole concept. And people tell me all the time, boy, I never knew or thought about just doing a 10% beneficiary in my will, in my retirement plan, and knowing that 10% does not have to be the end. Great question, Steve. Thank you. Next question, Sandra from Salem, Mass. Thank you, Sandra. We are just starting our individual gifts program. How do we know when we are ready for plan giving? Great question. I believe, as I mentioned earlier, if you look at the three stools of fundraising, of giving, annual fund, major giving, and plan giving, and I believe that they should not, none of those should exist in a silo, that they all should be part of the plan. So even if you're just starting out, let's say you're just starting your annual fund program, the likelihood of someone making a plan gift, yes, it'll be less than someone who has an established program, but we want to give them options. And why not start all three at the same time so that we can build that and show people they all feed each other. They all should feed each other. So I believe, and when I go into clients and I help them, most people will approach me, potential clients, and say, hey, plan giving, you know, it's that sexy thing. We need to be doing more of that. It's what gets people's attention. Pretty much all the time when I go into a new client that wants to just talk about plan giving, we take a look at the annual fund and the major gifts program, especially the major gifts program, and realize, boy, there's a lot of work. We need to add more structure, more process, more intentionality around major and annual giving as well. So most times we're developing the major and plan gift program at the same time. Thank you, Sandra. We have time for one more question. Yvonne from Austin, Texas. What do you think about the role of professional advisors? Great question. It depends on your organization. Certainly, if you are Salvation Army, American Cancer Society type of organization has really high brand recognition, I would say that some time would be well spent working with professional advisors who may have clients, and I don't think it's that often. Although if you look at the research, let me correct that. If you look at the research, more and more donors are turning to their professional advisors for advice on philanthropic on their philanthropic giving. So yes, if you have high brand recognition, it probably is time well spent developing relationships with professional advisors. If your organization is well known in the community, it has a high profile, yes, I'm not saying ignore professional advisors under any circumstances, but from a priority standpoint, we only have so much time to devote to this. And I'd rather be spending time directly with the people that can say yes, not necessarily with people who can't say yes. And let's face it, as humans, we often take the path of least resistance. So let's focus directly on the donor first. And if we have time left, then we can spend some time with professional advisors. So thank you, Yvonne, for that question. If there are questions we haven't gotten to, or if you think of some after this and you want to email me, joe@joetumalo.com. Love answering questions. If you want more detail on how to actually build the program, the simplified book version is available on Amazon, the Kindle and the paperback. I am not sure why some of the new ones are cheaper than the used ones, but anyway, you can go on Amazon and find the simplified version. And then on my website, I have lots of free resources, videos and podcasts and different papers on plan giving and major gifts. And just a quick plug, I do a lot of this stuff for free, but I am not a nonprofit organization. And so if the organization you're connected with, or you know someone that needs to get structure and needs to be more confident and intentional around developing these programs, planned and major gifts program, that's what I do. I do workshops, I speak at association events, I do in-house training, and really stick with my clients to make sure that they get the results. Thank you so much for your time today. I hope it's been helpful. Thanks for all you do for your organizations and for moving charitable giving and philanthropy forward. All the best to you.